Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 14. We're already at 14 of these of how to write a best-selling novel with AI. In the last part, if you haven't seen it, it's on my website. You can check it out and you can get the rest of the course there. But essentially, I talked about the importance of book covers and why you should stop and think about how you're going to market this book, not after your manuscript is done, your first draft is done, but as you're writing it. Because, and I explained everything in the last video, but to briefly recap, there's just too many books out there. There's too much competition out there for you to wait until your book is completely done to start marketing. You need to build hype somehow as you're writing it. And then your first question is, how do I build hype and reveal the story without spoiling everything or without giving away the entire book? I'll go into more details about that later, but having a book cover already done, or at least having a good idea of what your book cover is going to be, is a great place to start. It's visual, it's memorable, and if you do it right, you're going to be on genre, you're going to be on target to get to your target audience. So today, in the last video, I did some playing around with Midjourney, and I was trying to figure out a good kind of vibe for this book cover, what direction did I want to go in, and I started narrowing things down. And what I ended up going with is pretty much nothing from the previous video of what you saw. I ended up going with a kind of a fusion, a blend of the real and AI. And I'm going to show you what the final, at least the temporary cover, what it looks like right now. And this is what I came up with. And you can see we've got it here. And I'm going to go over all of these elements, but I really liked this cover. And I showed it to my wife last night, and she gave me some critiques, but she also gave me some pointers to help me make it better. And I really like this. It's almost exactly what I pictured in my head. It's got the right level of creepiness. It's a little bit off-settling just because you see certain graphics and you see certain images there. So I'm gonna talk about how this came together, and that's what I want to do in this video. And then after I talk through this cover, I want to then go on to talking about how am I going to target, like, where's my first plan of attack for deploying this cover in order to get the right people to see it. I'll talk about that after I talk through the cover. Well, let's take a look at this cover. There's a lot of elements here, and you can see what's going on here. Of course, we've got my name and we've got the title, and I think I mentioned this in the last video that it's more of a Western convention to have the name very prominent. And I thought about, okay, well, a lot of bestsellers do this, so I should probably do it too if I want my book to be more on, just have that familiar feel to a reader, like, oh, okay, this is more of what I'm used to. And that's what a lot of creative work is. You're giving something familiar, but then you're offering something different as well. And so that's what I do here, with the words, the gates of Okinawa. And then of course we have the Torii Gate, which is a prominent feature. It's called Gates of Okinawa. It makes sense to have a gate. But all those AI images I was fucking with in the last video, I didn't end up using any of them. And what I ended up using was a picture that I took. This is an actual photo of a place here in Okinawa. It's called Ishigaki Island. It's one of the smaller islands off of the main island. But I took this picture at a random shrine somewhere in a remote part of the island. And it was around sunset. So it was just a really good picture. One of my better ones. If you ask my wife, I take terrible pictures, but I digress. So I bought that element in because it had the gate, and I just thought, I was like, man, this was a really good picture. I love the sunset. And then the next element I added was this alien craft to really signal that, hey, this is an alien fiction story, and that's me. And I talked about this in the last video, how you really want to signal to your readers. You want to have indicators and signs that you're on target with what this book is about. That's what the book cover is. It's basically a promise to say, if you open this book, you're going to get this type of story. It doesn't matter what genre it is. This is an alien fiction story, and it says so down here, but prove it, right? Here we've got an alien craft here, and this is an actual asset that I used in another story that I'm writing, Serious Unlimited Escape from Okinawa, which is actually takes place in the same universe as this story. This is actually a side story of that story. Anyway, point is the alien craft is a is an indicator, right? And then this was an element I was really proud of up here. So what the hell is this? What is this demon looking down? This is also a picture that I took, but it's of a stamp that I got here in Okinawa. I went to a local what was it? It's not a Halloween thing. It's more of a local thing where they talk about their local demons and folklore and things like that, stories related to this, and they have a bunch of 3D displays of these various ghosts and demons, and they tell you a little bit about the stories and the origins and things like that. And so this was one of the demons. And how creepy it's so creepy that it's there. And I did this kind of transparent thing because in the book, I have the actual book right here. And here's the stamp book, the Japanese stamp book, and it was literally stamped. So you had to go through, and that was your incentive to fill up the whole book and go to each station and see all of the demons. But here is the demon in question here. There he goes. So this was a stamp. And so I thought this was a creative way to, in the angle of the demon, it just looks perfect. It looks like it's looking down from the sky. It's just so creepy and just kind of unsettling. And it's perfect for the vibe of this story. Not too much horror, and I had a hard time balancing. Like, I didn't want it to signal horror because it's not a horror novel, but at the same time, there is a creepiness. There's a folklore. There's offsettling. We're talking about aliens, but not in the little green men stereotype or blue men or whatever color you want them to be. We're not talking like xenomorph alien stereotype, which most people think of when they think of alien, at least in the West, right? So this was a great signal that if you're from Okinawa or if you know of this demon, then it's on target. You're like, oh man, that's something that I know. Same with these two. These were my last two ads, elements, and these are also pictures that I took of. These are called shisa. Shisa are lion dogs here. That is a very, if you ever come to Okinawa, you will see these things everywhere. And it's a spin-off of the Chinese guardian dogs, who in China you'll see these as well, but here in Okinawa they've adapted them to be very Okinawan, and they're everywhere. They're just the unofficial mascot. Well, probably the official mascot of Okinawa is these, and they usually come in pairs. But I was at a festival with my wife a couple of months ago, and I saw this awesome statue. This is actually a statue, and I just pulled it out of the picture. Of course, it was on a table, and there was other people around, but I pulled it out, and I decided to put these in front, even though in the actual picture there was no Shisa there. But it's just, they're so menacing, and they just look like they're staring at her, and then putting the shadows in, and then putting her there. She is actually an AI element, and she's the only. Well, she's not the only. The alien craft is also an AI element as well. I ripped that from a Midjourney picture, and she's generated from Midjourney. But those are the only two AI elements that I used, and I think this brings up a good point, that just because this course is obviously called Writing a Best-Selling Novel with AI doesn't mean that you have to use AI for everything. And I think, at least right now as I'm recording this, that's the general thought, is that it's AI or nothing. And a lot of people still haven't found that balance yet of how much human input and how much AI input. And I think that's where the magic happens. And that's where I've been working towards this last year and a half. So you're in the right place. You're working with the right person who's really trying to find a way to not have the technology take over the entire process, but then how can I blend that to what I already know how to do and human elements? And I think this cover speaks to that perfectly. It's on brand. It's the right balance of my pictures, my experience. It's cultural. It's got the right vibe. It took a while to get the colors right. There is a filter on this image to get it to where it, right, like I said, it's not too horror, but then it's still the right type of creepiness to where, okay, the sun's setting. That's always um, an interesting time of day where you've got this kind of orange cloud. Is it setting or is it rising? It's setting in this picture, at least when I took it, it was. Um, the gates there, it says Gates of Okinawa. It's signals Okinawa with these signals. We're perfect. This is a perfect cover, at least for right now. This is what I'm going to stick with, and this will probably be the final. Now, let me talk a little bit about how am I going to use this cover, because basically I've got the right bait, but I need to be in the right place to deploy the bait. And this is a hard question to answer. I've been ever since I've been creating online, I've struggled with this because you'll hear different things about where to find your people. And the fact is, online these days, I think in general people are just tired of being sold to. Everywhere, there's ads. People just, I don't know about you, but I pretty much ignore all ads. I mean, at least 90% of them. I mean, most of them are just, they're just, they range from cringy to lazy to just outright just frustrating. They come up everywhere. They're in your apps. They're on your streaming service. They're on YouTube if you're not paying for YouTube Premium. They're on TV. I mean, it was just on TV, right? But now pretty much, and the ad industry is hurting right now because they know this. They know people are tired of ads. They know they're clicking through, but it's one of those things. How do you get through? I mean, this whole course is essentially a long ad to hopefully get you to invest in this course, and I hope the course is actually helpful as well. But that's the thing, like, content has become the new advertisement, so people are tired of that as well. I know I see it all the time on social media, like the humble brags. This is one of the reasons I got off of X, Twitter, because it turned everything was just clearly selling at you, telling you, oh, you don't know how to use ChatGPT, use it this way, this type of shit. You just get tired of that shit. Anyway, point is, people are tired of it. So how do you get through the noise? When you're not a James Patterson or J.K. Rowling, you don't have this famous author name. You're just getting started. What can you do? You have no choice but to go to the places that are most likely to resonate with your stuff. So for instance, with my case with this novel, this is set in Okinawa, Japan. It's written from the U.S. military community perspective for the most part, and it's meant to resonate with that kind of cross-cultural blend of American, Japanese, particularly Okinawan vibe, that culture. And so that's where I'm going to go eventually. I'm not going to do it on the recording, but that's eventually where I'm going to go. I'm going to take this cover. I'm going to take the draft that I have, and I'm going to say, this is what I'm writing. Would you be interested in reading the draft or signing up or whatever? This is how you build hype. And then over time, there's other strategies you can employ. Eventually you get an email list. You start collecting names of people who might be interested in buying. And then we can talk about doing pre-sales. I know that was one of the things I mentioned in the last video with my military autobiography, Hayden Brave. Pre-sales were huge. And I kind of fucked myself because I put myself under the clock. I put my book up for pre-sale at the beginning of the month, with no idea that when you do that, at least on Amazon, you have the date that you set to publish minus like 4 or 5 days, because they actually do check it, because I'm sure they've gotten burned plenty of times by somebody saying, oh, yeah, the book will be pre-sale, it'll be ready by the end of the month. And there's no book. And there's a bunch of pissed off people who have prepaid and they don't get a book. And that looks bad on Amazon because they're the ones distributing it. So to combat this, I'm guessing they make it pretty strict to where if you don't have your book up by the date that you've set, because you're setting the date, then I think they bust you in the algorithms. They basically make it to where you can't do pre-sales anymore, and they bust your discovery. It's really a bad thing. It's not good. Everything I read is that you don't want to bust your date, especially you are making the date. You are setting the date that you want to pre-sale. Anyway, I'm not going to talk that much about pre-sales, but it's a strategy to get people excited because they know when they see the book, there's something about seeing the book up on Amazon that is a signal to people that this is a real book, it's coming, and I want to be first in line to get it. And I've experimented with other ways. I've put it up on Gumroad, I've put it up on my website, I've put it up on other sites. Nothing does it, at least currently. Amazon is just kind of the king of book discoverability right now, whether we like it or not. I don't like it either. That's just the way it is. But when people see your book, and it's like that over here in Japan as well. Like when I released my translated Japanese version of my novel, Sirius and Limnic, it was the same way. First question Japanese people asked, is it on Amazon? I mean, there's just an air of legitimacy that you get by putting it up there. So I might put this one up for pre-order now that the cover is done and it looks good. And I already have, if you've watched the course all the way up here, I already have that killer book blurb, which I do need to tweak a little bit, but it's still just very exciting. It's just, when I read it, I'm like, damn, I can't wait to read this finished novel, and I'm the one that's writing it. So that's how you build hype. And especially now, pre-sales are big. I've seen people start pre-sales online as far out as 6 months, hell, maybe even a year, because it does put you on the clock. It forces you. It's a forcing function, very powerful, to say, if I don't have this done, there's gonna be real consequences to me busting this deadline. So I really want to get it done. And yeah, I may set up that pre-sale, but this is all. Why are we doing all this? The whole point is to, one, build awareness as we're writing, so we're not behind the curve when we finish. We're not trying to play catch up with it, because that's what happens. It's to build excitement. It's to build hype. It's to get the right people behind the story as soon as possible. And I'm telling you, I've seen so many indie authors complaining about this, that, I just want to write. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, that's too fucking bad. This is the world we live in now. It's not going to go back, and there's options for people who don't want to do this. There is still traditional publishing. You can go and submit your manuscript and do that. And I do plan eventually on sending some of my stories in, some of my manuscripts in to traditional publishers. But we have the power to do this now. Everything I've taught you in this course, I didn't go to publishing school. There was no such thing. I didn't go to how to write novels, best-selling novels school. There's no such thing. Actually, you're probably watching it right now. But I didn't learn any of that stuff in an official capacity. I just learned it myself. Point is, you have the power now to do everything that I've showed you in this course, to not only write the book, but to market it, to make an appropriate cover, to target the right people. You have the same tools that the big companies have. And 10 years ago, even just 10 years ago, I couldn't say that, because the big companies had all the access to the information and the data, and they had all the expertise. Now with technology like AI chatbots like ChatGPT, you have access to at least a worthy equivalent of that if you know how to ask the right questions. And that's a super powerful thing that I feel like not enough people have really realized yet. They will soon, eventually, probably when it's forced on most of them. But right now, if you're watching this, you are ahead of the curve. Like you are seeing in real time how to make something valuable to other people, a story. Think of the books that you've read throughout your life that impacted your life. You have the power to bring that to life now, and to put that in somebody's hands. It's so powerful. I can't. The fact that this is it's total made up. It's a story I I wrote. I made it up, and people have bought it. People have read it, and when you let that sink in, that I didn't have to get a publisher. I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. And this is was not meant to be a motivational speech, but maybe it turned into one. But look at what I've done here with this. And yeah, this is a little bit more complex. This is a little bit, you know, maybe you can't do this at first glance, but on the first try, I've made dozens of covers. This is where I'm at with my progression with this skill. You'll get better at it. Your first covers are going to be very plain. I know mine were. And a lot of them, even just doing an AI image, I can just show you. Let me pull up this. The first instance of this cover was just an AI image. Oh. Okay, yeah, I forgot I had signed out. So the first instance of this cover was really nothing special. It wasn't that good. This was the first image. So this is essentially one of the Midjourney images, and I put the alien craft in the center of the gate. Um, and I kind of stopped because I was like, oh, it's okay. And then she's down here, and I did like the way the water looks like it's crashing, but um, it looks okay. It's just it's basic. I did do some cleanup of the AI image with Canvas tools, but I felt like this one, it just feels more authentic, and that's the thing. Like that feel of something, that's something that you get better at as you do more of these things, as you make more of these decisions. I mentioned this in the last video, but it just feels better that this is more. It feels more authentic to me that I took these pictures, and it feels like it's more grounded in what I want in the story that I want to tell. This might be okay for your story or for another version of this story, but point being that you have to decide, and you're going to get better at this as you go along. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now, and I'm going to end this section. In the next one, I really want to go into the new system that I've set up to write the novel, because I'm on chapter 27. I've written 26 chapters, and it's getting to where the whole workflow that I showed you in the first 10 videos, it's getting pretty cumbersome. It's too many moving parts. Writing a novel can be very complicated, and I think I'm at the point where a lot of people, they quit because it does get too complicated. Like in the past, it's very hard. You've opened up all these plot threads, you've introduced all these different characters, and you're like, I'm kind of feeling like I've lost the plot, basically, of I know where it's going, but how do I get there? Like I'm in the middle of the maze, and I started here and everything was okay, and then now I'm just they call it the muddy middle. And in any creative medium, I mean, in music, I've heard it in music, I've heard it in films, I've heard it, and it applies to writing as well. The middle is the hardest part to write, because the beginning, you go in all smiles, and you're ready to tackle the story, and you've got it firm, you know what you want to talk about. And then the end is probably is more firm as well, because you're like, okay, I know where I want the characters to end up. I know I have this big idea for this explosive climax scene, but few people think about the middle of their story. And that makes sense, because it's just kind of murky. You don't really know where things are going to be in the middle until you start writing it, and then you get there. Don't worry, there's ways to help you get through that. And in the next video, I plan on going and showing you a tool that is going to be a great way to organize all of your notes, all of your thoughts, and get you writing again. Thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in checking out the rest of this course, links in the description. You can access it by a couple of different ways, but I hope it helps you write a clearer and more profitable novel. I'll see you in the next one.